All right, so today we're diving into something a little different, but something I think you're really going to dig, especially if you're all about those like big life questions.
Yeah, definitely.
We're taking a look at Mitch Albom's The Five People You Meet in Heaven.
Oh, nice choice.
And I know you love getting right to the heart of things, so I think you're going to appreciate this book.
For sure, album's great at exploring those deeper themes without getting too, I don't know, philosophical or preachy.
Exactly. It's all about those like aha
Hmm.
moments that really stick with you,
Yeah.
right? And the coolest thing is we're going to be drawing straight from the book itself, using excerpts and passages to really get into Eddie's journey.
Sounds fascinating. So, what's the big idea behind this deep dive? What are we hoping to uncover?
Well, it's all about those big questions about life, death, and how we're all connected, really. And Albin does this amazing thing where he starts the story not with a birth, but with an ending.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I like that.
We're dropped right into Eddie's last hour at Ruby Pier, the amusement park he's basically lived at his whole life.
That sets the scene straight away. I'm intrigued already. Tell me about Eddie. Who is he?
Okay, so picture this, right? Eddie, he's 83, white hair, a veteran, got a bad knee from his time serving. But still, the kids at the pier, they all know him for this like huge, genuine grin, almost like a dolphin, you
I
know.
love that image, the dolphin grin.
And his whole job at the pier is to keep those rides safe, make sure nothing goes wrong. So he's super meticulous, checking everything, making sure everyone's safe.
Dedicated guy.
Yeah, totally. But then on this one day, near this huge ride, Freddy's free fall, one of the carts malfunctions, like really bad. And Eddie sees this little girl, we're not totally sure of her name, maybe Amy or Annie, right in the path of danger.
Oh, no. That's a heart-stopping moment right there.
Yeah, seriously intense.
Yeah.
And Eddie's instinct is to protect her, so he rushes in, tries to save her.
Makes sense. So heroic.
But in doing so, he's killed.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah, it's super heavy. But here's where it gets really interesting. His experience of death, it's not what you'd expect. Like, there's no pain, just this overwhelming feeling of peace, like calmness washing over him.
Really? Interesting. That's not the typical portrayal of death, is it?
Nope, not at all. And then the sky around him, it starts swirling with these vibrant colors, like bright grapefruit yellow, deep forest green, even this like pink that reminds him of cotton candy.
Whoa, that's so vivid. It's like Album's trying to shift Eddie's whole perception of reality.
Yeah, exactly. Like his earthly senses are fading and he's opening up to something way bigger, and he feels like he's floating over this vast ocean and then like plunges into this deep underwater silence.
Those sensory details are incredible. You can almost feel yourself there with him.
And throughout all of this, through all this like extraordinary stuff, Eddie's main thought is, did he save the little girl?
Oh, wow. So that question becomes his driving force, like his mission in this new world.
Totally. It shapes everything that happens next. And that's where his encounter with the first of the five people comes in, the Blue Man.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
So suddenly Eddie's back at Ruby Pier, but it's not the pier he knew from his later years. It's like the pier from his childhood, maybe 75 years earlier. Everything's pristine, like freshly painted, and he feels this amazing lightness in his body.
So it's familiar but different.
Yeah, exactly. Like a version of reality he remembers, but not quite the same. Oh, and he can't speak. Like he tries, but nothing comes out.
Oh, wow. That's got to be frustrating.
Right, so he's walking around, taking it all in, and near one of the old sideshow exhibits, he meets this man with, get this, bright blue skin.
Blue skin, that's got to be a bit of a shock, even given everything else that's happened.
Seriously, right? Talk about a sign that things aren't what they seem. So Eddie's understandably curious, but remember, he can't speak. And then the Blue Man drops this huge bombshell. He tells Eddie that he died in a car accident, an accident that was indirectly caused by Eddie himself, like way back when he was just a kid.
Whoa, okay. Hold on. So Eddie had something to do with this guy's death. How?
So apparently Eddie was chasing a baseball into the street. You know how kids are. And the Blue Man, he was just learning to drive, borrowed his dad's car, and he swerved to avoid hitting Eddie. But that swerve caused him to have a heart attack, and he died.
That's so tragic. Like, you think about all those little moments in our lives, how they can have these huge, unexpected consequences.
Right. And it's not like Eddie meant for it to happen. It was just this like innocent childhood action with these huge ripple effects.
And now he's face to face with the consequence, literally.
Yeah, crazy, right? And it's the Blue Man who teaches Eddie that first big lesson. All lives are interconnected. He says there are no random acts, that every life touches countless others.
I like that. It's a powerful idea.
Totally. And the Blue Man tells Eddie that strangers are just family you haven't met yet. And in that moment, Eddie feels all the blue man's emotions, like watching over him. And then, get this, the blue man's skin changes from blue to like this warm caramel color, and poof, he's gone.
Wow. That's an intense encounter.
It really is, but Eddie's still left with that question. Did he save the little girl?
Right, yeah. So that's still hanging over him. What happens next?
So then everything shifts, and Eddie finds himself in this like really stark, war-torn landscape. And it immediately triggers all these awful nightmares he's had for years.
Oh, wow. So we're moving to another pivotal period in Eddie's life.
Yeah, and it gets pretty heavy. He sees a rifle and a helmet marking a grave, and then he runs into the captain, his commanding officer from the war.
So we're back to his time serving, facing those traumas again.
Exactly. And the captain starts telling Eddie about their time as prisoners of war, how brutal it was, working in a coal mine, barely surviving.
Oh, man. That's tough to even imagine.
And then he tells Eddie about their escape, how they set fire to the camp to create a diversion. But then comes this truth that's super hard for Eddie to hear. The captain admits he was the one who shot Eddie in the leg during their escape.
Whoa, hold on. What? Why would he do that?
Yeah, it's a shocker, right? It feels like a betrayal. But the captain explains it was the only way to stop Eddie from running back into a burning building, which would have meant certain death.
Oh, wow. So it was an act of sacrifice.
Yeah, like the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
And the captain himself didn't survive. Their escape transport hit a landmine, and he died. So he's asking Eddie to forgive him for shooting him, for causing him all those years of pain and limited mobility.
Man, that's heavy.
And then, just like that, the whole desolate landscape transforms into this beautiful, tranquil island.
Wow, that's like a visual representation of the weight being lifted, the forgiveness, and the peace.
Exactly. It's like a physical manifestation of the emotional shift. And the captain's lesson for Eddie is all about sacrifice, that sometimes when you give up something precious, you're not losing it, you're passing it on, you're saving something even greater.
That's a powerful lesson. I mean, it makes you think about those tough choices we all face, the sacrifices we make, and how they can ripple out and impact others in ways we might never fully understand.
Right. It's all about perspective and the bigger picture, even when it's painful. So, ready for Eddie's third encounter.
Bring it on.
All right, so now Eddie finds himself on this mountaintop, like a pretty ordinary mountaintop, outside a diner, and then suddenly he's in this, like, vast jade-colored sky. Super surreal.
So we're getting more of those dreamlike settings, those shifts in reality.
Totally. And it's there he meets an old woman who introduces herself as Ruby.
Ruby, huh? As in Ruby Pier.
Yeah, you got it. And she starts telling him about how the pier came to be, how it was her husband Emil's vision, a way to capitalize on the railroad coming through.
Oh, so it was a business venture first and foremost. Interesting.
Yeah, but then she tells Eddie about this horrific fire that happened on Independence Day, a fire that ripped through the pier and tragically killed Emil. And then she reveals that the pier was named after her, after Ruby.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. So the pier holds all this history, all this joy, and all this tragedy.
Absolutely. And then Ruby's story takes this really personal turn for Eddie. She tells him she's there to reveal the truth behind his father's death.
Oh, okay, so this is going to be emotional.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense. She talks about how Eddie's dad always had this connection to the ocean, how he loved it, and how one night he ended up spending hours on the beach soaking wet, which led to him getting pneumonia and dying.
Oh, man, that's heartbreaking.
But then Ruby drops this bombshell. She tells Eddie that his father actually witnessed another pier worker, a guy named Mickey Shea, assaulting Eddie's mother.
What? Oh, no.
Yeah, it's super heavy. And this event, this trauma, it messed Eddie's dad up. He ended up getting into a huge fight with Mickey Shea and then basically shut down emotionally. He became withdrawn, silent, and even when he was dying in a hospital, he couldn't bring himself to really connect with Eddie.
That's so tragic. The weight of that unspoken pain, it just crushed him.
Yeah, and Ruby's lesson for Eddie is all about forgiveness. She wants him to forgive his father, to understand that his father's actions and Eddie's own resentment towards him weren't the real reasons he felt trapped at the pier.
That's a powerful message, you know. Forgiveness, it's often so much harder than it sounds.
Totally. But it's like this key to letting go of the pain and anger that's holding you back. So are you ready for Eddie's fourth encounter?
Yeah, hit me with it.
This one's a bit different, but it's super beautiful. Eddie finds himself moving through all these different wedding receptions, like from all over the world, each one vibrant and unique and full of life.
That's such a cool image.
I know, right? And then he comes to this wedding that looks like it's straight out of an old Italian village, and that's where he sees her, Marguerite.
His wife.
Yeah. And she greets him with this sweet little inside joke they had for the bitter and the sweet. It's this instant reminder of their shared history, their connection.
Oh, that's lovely. Like they just pick up right where they left off.
And then Marguerite reveals that she also met 5 people after her death, just like Eddie.
Interesting. So this isn't just unique to Eddie. There's a bigger system at play here.
Right. There's this whole other level of understanding about the afterlife that we're just starting to glimpse. And they start reminiscing about their life together, their simple wedding, their deep desire to adopt a child.
That's so heartwarming. But also, I can't help but feel a little sadness there.
Yeah, it's bittersweet for sure. Because then Marguerite brings up the car accident she was in, the one that took away their chance at having a family.
Oh, right. The accident that happened on Eddie's birthday.
Yeah, the day he'd had a rare win at the racetrack.
Yeah.
And she was so excited for him that she drove out to find him, and that's when the accident happened.
Man, that's rough. It's like fate had other plans for them.
And Marguerite talks about her final years, how she battled a brain tumor with such strength and grace, and how she and Eddie faced her impending death together with love and acceptance.
That's both beautiful and heartbreaking.
It really is. But Marguerite's lesson for Eddie is so profound and comforting. She tells him that lost love is still love. Life has to end, but love doesn't.
Wow. That's such a powerful message.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And she reassures Eddie that she never blamed him for the accident, that their time together, even with all its hardships, was precious and meaningful. And then they have this beautiful dance together, their song playing in the background.
That's a perfect way to end their reunion.
Totally. And it sets the stage for Eddie's final encounter, his meeting with the 5th person.
Okay, I'm ready. Who's the last person Eddie meets?
All right, so this one is really special. Eddie finds himself by this gently flowing river, and there are all these children around, playing, laughing, and this little girl approaches him, speaking in a language he doesn't understand. She takes his hand, shows him how to make a little dog out of a pipe cleaner, and then she tells him her name.
Tala.
Tala. Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's Tala's story?
So here it is, the answer to the question that's been haunting Eddie since his death. Tala was the little girl on Freddy's Freefall. Oh, wow. It all comes full circle.
And she tells him that he didn't actually pull her to safety. He pushed her legs away from the falling debris, saving her life.
That's incredible. And such a relief for Eddie, I bet.
Totally, it's like this huge weight lifted off his shoulders. But then Tala shows Eddie all these burns and scars on her body.
Oh no, what happened to her?
She tells him they're from the fire that Eddie and the captain set in the coal mine, the fire they used to escape. Tala was a child hiding there, and she was caught in the flames.
Oh my God. That's devastating. It's like this chain reaction of unintended consequences.
Yeah, and it really drives home that point about how interconnected our lives are, how even actions we think are good or necessary can have these ripple effects we can't always foresee.
So true. It's a lot to process.
But then Tala reveals something else, something super important. She tells Eddie that his life at the pier, all those years of checking rides and making sure everything was safe, it wasn't mundane or pointless at all. He had a huge impact. He kept countless children safe, prevented other tragedies from happening, and the hands he felt pulling him up after the accident, the hands he thought belonged to an angel, they were Tala's hands, guiding him to heaven.
Wow. That's beautiful. So his whole life had this bigger purpose that he didn't even realize.
Exactly. It's like all those small, everyday actions added up to something truly extraordinary. And then the river starts to rise, and Eddie's given this incredible vision of the pier, but it's not broken or empty anymore. It's filled with all the people whose lives he touched through his work. He hears their voices, and he feels this overwhelming sense of peace.
I love that. It's like a final affirmation of his life's work.
And then he starts to float upwards towards the top of the Ferris wheel, and guess who's waiting for him there?
Marguerite.
Yep, his beloved Marguerite. And a voice says, home. Just that one word, but it says everything.
Wow, that's so powerful. It's a perfect ending to Eddie's journey.
It really is. So as we reach the end of our deep dive into the 5 people you meet in heaven, I think the big takeaways are pretty clear. Our lives are connected in ways we can't always see. Even small acts of sacrifice can have huge meaning. Forgiveness can truly set us free. Love transcends death. And our everyday actions can have a purpose far greater than we imagine.
It really makes you think about your own life, you know? And the people you've touched, the impact you've had, even in seemingly small ways.
Exactly. And if Eddie's story resonated with you, I highly encourage you to check out the full book. It's a beautiful, moving exploration of these big life questions, and it might just change the way you look at your own life and the connections you've made along the way.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that every life has value and every action matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time.
It was a pleasure.
See ya.